Hey everyone, I hope you had a good weekend. There was a ton of news, and in our effort to cover it as fast as humanly possible, I really hope that you're liking what we're doing and that you subscribe and stay part of this, normie, moderate community with a little left lean, obviously. And please send us your feedback as well. We read the comments. Love to hear from you. Subscribe and stick with Raging Moderates. Now, here's my conversation with Glenn Thrush. Welcome to Raging Moderates. I'm Jessica Tarlov, and today I'm joined by Glenn Thrush, who covers the Justice Department for the New York Times. And that beat might just be the most important in Washington right now. The Justice Department is supposed to stand above politics, but instead it's looking more and more like Donald Trump's personal assignment desk. On Friday, a career prosecutor resigned after failing to bring charges against two of Trump's biggest enemies. By Saturday, Trump was not only bragging that he fired him, he was also demanding that his attorney general, Pam Bondi, quote, move fast to prosecute names like Adam Schiff, James Comey, and Letitia James. I actually thought that it was a DM that he put out into the wild by accident, but no, it was legitimately supposed to be public. Then Trump announced he'd be nominating his former personal lawyer, Lindsay Halligan, who has never been a prosecutor, to take over one of the most powerful U.S. attorney offices in the country. Glenn, your latest reporting lays out just how extraordinary this is, a president openly ordering prosecutions of political opponents, tearing down the longstanding wall between the White House and the Justice Department. Let's watch how Trump described the situation over the weekend.
Mr. President, in regards to Pam Bondi, who should she focus on as far as bringing accountability?
Everybody, really. It's a big office. She's doing a good job, but focus on everybody. There are a lot of crooked people that were here before me. And people that almost destroyed our country. If I didn't win this election, our country would be destroyed. We wouldn't have a country right now. Thank you very much.
If I had a nickel for every time he said we wouldn't have a country, I would be not working probably. But what's the mood like right now inside the DOJ?
What is the mood like? I would say inside of DOJ, this situation with the Eastern District of Virginia, which is an extraordinarily important place, just south of Washington, D.C., handles a lot of sensitive national security matters. It's really one of the flagship offices in the country. And I can just tell you, it has hit like a tornado, just a tremendous amount of confusion. This is a tight-knit group of prosecutors who tend to think of themselves typically as apolitical. The guy who they got rid of, Eric Siebert, through my reporting, was somebody that the White House liked. It was somebody that the senior leadership of the Justice Department liked. Emile Beauvais, the president's strong-armed enforcer at DOJ, who just took a judgeship, who is regarded by many people as the embodiment of weaponization. At least folks on the left believe that he was the embodiment of weaponization of the department against Trump's enemies, really liked him, sent him texts of support. Todd Blanche, another Trump defense lawyer who is now the number 2 at the Justice Department running the day-to-day operations, really liked him. But that wasn't enough to save him. And I spoke with someone who left the office recently who told me this morning a couple of things that I thought were interesting. A friend of theirs called them up this morning and said, if Eric wasn't safe, none of us were safe. And that individual and other people have told me on the outside that they're being inundated by resumes and requests from people inside this very important U.S. Attorney's Office, experienced people asking them how they can get the hell out as fast as they can.
That seems to be a trend since the Trump administration came back into office, and especially making these law firms kind of bend the knee to them. You have a world in which Skadden is going to have to be defending the Heritage Foundation. So everything's kind of like upside downtown. Is there a feeling, though, that some folks are like, we have to stay and fight? Like the future of the country depends on having a free and fair justice system, right? Or most people just like, it's time to cash that check and we got to get out of here.
Well, if we look at the attrition numbers that have occurred at Main Justice, it's a substantial portion of the experienced people, typically the folks who are kind of at the top of the food chain. But the vast majority of people kind of gut it out. And what's really interesting about this thing that I think folks have not paid enough attention to in terms of this Eastern District of Virginia situation, is that Blanche and Bondi both let it be known that they didn't think this was a good idea through the White House. So they lost a power struggle with Ed Martin, who is the quote unquote weaponization czar, and Bill Pulte, the head of the Housing Finance Agency, who is adopting this outsized political role. He's the one who's sort of come up with this idea of using second mortgages as a peg to go after people. It appears that those two, Pulte and Martin, got in the ears of White House officials and Trump himself to override the advice of Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi. And let me tell you, as you know, Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi have been acquiescent to most of the stuff Trump has wanted to do. So the fact that they would stand up for Eric Siebert was extraordinary. And the fact that Trump would just completely overrule them and challenge them in public about it just takes this entire thing to the next level.
So do you think that he is really standing behind Pam Bondi? Because that has been his posture. I've heard from many people within the administration who I know personally, he loves Pam. Loves Pam, even though the Epstein file situation has been an utter debacle, and she's played a key role in that, obviously. So do you think her job is still safe?
I'm going to try to pull us out of the binary a little bit on this.
Okay.
It kind of doesn't matter who the attorney general is. I know that's sort of an extraordinary thing to say. And of course, the head of the Justice Department is fundamental. But there was a lawsuit that was filed by senior FBI leadership basically hours before Charlie Kirk was tragically killed. And in it, they explained in really stark terms the extent to which the White House and Stephen Miller in particular were attempting to exert direct control over their operations. So while I think Bondi is clearly occupying her office and Blanche in particular has influence in the White House, to some extent, who occupies the nominal titles in this administration matter much less than the real power map. And frankly, Trump moves around the power depending on people who tell him what he wants to hear, people he perceives as those who are defending him. And frankly, he's got a little bit of Bill Clinton in him, in that the person who last talked to him 20 minutes ago oftentimes rises to the top. So viewing it as whether or not Pam Bondi stays or goes in the way that we kind of looked at the Jeff Sessions and Barr situation in the first term, I think the train has moved up the rail. Don't want to screw up my metaphors here. My bad trite metaphor. But I feel like the situation has changed so much, it almost doesn't matter who's technically running things because all of their power is iterative of Trump, and Trump weighs in when he chooses to weigh in and wants to order them to do investigations, even when the professionals determine that there isn't enough evidence to prove that there's a crime.
Yeah. Well, and the role of Stephen Miller, which it doesn't matter who I'm talking to or what area I'm talking about, there is always a Stephen Miller aspect to it. I want to make sure that I get your thoughts on the other big piece of reporting that came out over the weekend about Tom Homan, the border czar. Back in September 2024, he was recorded taking a bag, and literally a bag from Cava, which I enjoy for lunch sometimes, but in a Cava bag had $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents posing as businessmen. That triggered a bribery probe. But once Trump returned to office, the DOJ shut it down, arguing that prosecutors couldn't prove he promised to take any official action in exchange for the money. So the FBI has tape of this, undercover agents and a whole operation, and yet the case disappears. Can you shed some light on what's going on here? I mean, to me, it just seems pretty simple. Like, Donald Trump's DOJ is protecting Donald Trump's guy. But if there's more, tell me.
Well, I could just tell you what our reporting is, and we're still chasing this. And really, we don't know much more than the top line. I should just tell you parenthetically, in an internal meeting this morning with my own folks, I made the terrible mistake of saying it was a roti bag. And I was corrected by the
That's a very different lunch you're talking about, Glenn.
They're all heart healthy if you play it right.
That's what they tell you, but I still gain weight no matter what I eat.
Same here.
Carry on. My weight is not your problem.
That's right. Well, I had a bagel this morning, so look who's talking. All right, so essentially, it is basically what we know. The one bit of nuance that I can add to this is, well, the first thing I do want to say is there is no proof of criminality. The facts as we presented them exist, to the best of our knowledge and the documents that we reviewed. We do not know that there is any evidence of actual criminality that warrants a prosecution or a conviction. That is beyond our understanding at this point in time. Just want to make that really clear, and also make it really clear that everyone is totally innocent until proven guilty, and allegations are just that. The department investigates a lot of stuff, decides to throw it out. The one thing I would say My understanding from people in the previous administration and Justice Department officials I spoke to who had some familiarity with the case said it was enormously complicated and it was not entirely clear what the transaction was or wasn't. So again, we know the basic facts on this. What we do not know and what we are attempting to understand is why it was that Emile Beauvais, who was running the department at that particular point in time, decided to stop the investigation. And also something that I don't think we've talked about much in print, but is imputed, is what role did the FBI play and what was the nature of the interactions between the FBI and the Justice Department on that. And I should just say, normally, administrations don't surface those sort of interactions between the FBI and DOJ, but this administration has when they have wanted to. And, in the Epstein case, they have divulged internal communications and interactions that we have not seen divulged in process stories. So we are very much at this point in time trying to find out precisely what it was that Beauvais made his decision based upon, and also what the FBI found or did not find.
Okay. And I just wanted to note in terms of these business people, because this is something that I feel like Democrats don't talk about as much. So Tom Homan had a thriving consulting business between the first and second Trump administrations. And he worked with a lot of business people that wanted border-related contracts. So everything from actually like building border walls, private security, and also private prisons. And I think that that is a really important storyline for what we're seeing now as they come out and they say we need to be arresting something like 3,000 people who are here illegally on, a per-day basis, that the private prison system is getting richer and richer off of what is going on right now. And it's interesting because I think that this probe from your reporting was part of a bigger probe, right? And Tom Homan kind of got mixed up on it. Like they didn't go out necessarily thinking that this was about Tom Homan. So that's another kind of plot line to be following.
You made 2 points that are extraordinarily important. Again, just to emphasize what we don't know and what we know. We don't really know what it's connected to, but I will say I'm somebody who's covered prisons quite a bit over the years. And the private prison system has had as many or more issues with the safety of its occupants and its employees as public systems do. Public systems get beat up, but these are very, very difficult situations. And the other thing, and we've published story after story about potential ethical and financial conflicts in this administration from top to bottom. And part of the frustration in writing about this stuff is two things. There is a false equivalence made between what prior administrations have done and what the Trump administration has done. The Trump administration is doing things that other administrations have not done, regardless of how it is that they're framing it. And then the other thing is this kind of removal of ethical safeguards. And one example that popped up last week that was extraordinarily stark, and I just want to point people back to the Kash Patel testimony when he appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee. He was asked about whether or not several of his top officials had flunked polygraph tests and were given waivers. And he punted on that question from one of the Democrats on the panel. But that is the kind of thing that has been going on. You're seeing a broad issuance of waivers, and you're seeing a level of tolerance for the commingling of personal financial gain and public service that you have not seen. Before. So there's a concerted attempt by the White House and Trump allies to just portray what they are doing as an extension of what has always been done. And I think one of the real frustrations of writing these stories over and over again is we run out of adjectives to sort of describe how extraordinary what is going on is. And what is going on right now is new. It is not old. It is not a continuation of practices as had been previously done.
Long way away from putting a peanut farm in a trust. Glenn Thrush, it was wonderful to have you. I hope you'll come back again. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.